them offers, promotions, discounts, or saying, you know, if you recommend us to 2 of your friends that make orders, you will get X for free. Do you do any kind of promotions like that?
Actually, no, we don't. It's something that has come up before, but honestly, we don't. All we do is wait for the big occasions like Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, and then put up a few posters or promos on social media. But in terms of reaching out directly to existing or potential customers, no.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. Thanks for sharing, Joe. That's really clear. What I would say is that you don't have to share that, but something else I would look at is what are the profits, you know, of the business. You said you had really good margins, but something that someone would maybe put down here is right now you haven't broken even. So where are you now? We're probably X amount away from breaking even, or you could say we're profitable. You know, that's talking about where you are now as a business. Or you could say, where are you now? We're in debt. You know, we've just had investors come in. We've got, you know, debt in equity. But those are good things to know where you are now, because that may not be where you want to stay. Does anybody else want to share before I move on to the next bit? I'll take that as a no. Great. So now that you know where you are, the next question is, where do you want to be? If you're here at A, where do you want to be? So Joe, for your wife's business, you might want to say that she would like to earn X amount from her business every year. You know, it may be that she wants to replace the income from other areas. FA, you'll probably have a good idea of the kind of income you want to earn annually. The other thing you might want to ask is, how many clients do you need to earn that income? So if you work backwards, in order to earn that much, if you're charging a certain amount or you have a certain amount of orders or clients, how much do you know, how many clients do you need over the year? You might look at it for a year. You might also have a 2-year or a 5-year plan. But what's interesting to understand is, what is your vision, your mission, and your targets? And those are very different. The vision is what I just talked about. Like, where do you see yourself? Being one of the biggest patisseries and confectionaries in the whole of Accra? Is that your vision? Is your vision to be one of the top leading consultants in your field, FA, you know, in Ghana?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And not just Ghana. In fact,
No,
FA, we need to talk
internationally.
about your work in Australia, because I'm moving to Sydney in June.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
I'd love to connect with you offline and hear more about the type of consulting that you do. But I suspect that you all have a vision of where you'd like to see your business grow. It could be that you would like to see yourself having 10 employees, or you would like to see yourself being Pan-African. So not just in Ghana, but you would like to see yourselves all over West Africa or East Africa. You might want to see yourselves working in Europe or the USA, and exporting, for example. So I want you guys to take a few minutes to think about the following. What is your vision? Where do you see yourself? Where's your mission, which is at the heart and core of it all? What is it that you want to achieve for yourself, your business, the planet? And then some tangible targets. So, for example, FA, when I started my consultancy, I said I wanted to have 6 clients in my first year, 6 paying clients. That was it. If I could get that, then that would be great. I wasn't so focused on the income. And then after that, I was focused in my second year of wanting to make sure that I was billing a certain amount of money. So maybe you can write down some of your SMART goals. Welcome to the call, I can see Ahmed Ibrahim as well. Thanks for joining. Does anyone have any questions about writing down where you want to be? Please either unmute.
Okay, I have a question. Like I said, I'm a participant for this session. So,
Please go ahead.
So my question is identifying where you want to be. Is that something that you should have planned ahead of time, or something that probably could be like your strategy for growth? You know, I'm trying to really understand developing your strategy for growth and really kind of like understanding where you want to be in terms of your sales and all. What is the difference between your strategies for growth and your sales process? I just want to get that clarity.
That's a good question. In this particular exercise, we're not looking for you to build out a wholesale strategy. We're looking more for the high level on this. So this would be great if you focused it on sales, because that's the area that I'll be able to provide some insights and some support on today. But I suspect as a business, you need to make money. And often a business is either selling a product or a service. So in your case, Chi-Chi, it may be onboarding people onto the platform or having partners, onboarding partners. So it may not be something that brings you financial money directly, but it may be growing the amount of partners that you have and that you work with by 10. So having 10 partners that support Circular Place. You could have a long-term plan to have a series of investments. So what you want to do is in the next 2 years, you want to become investment ready. So you can start speaking to organizations like MasterCard or the Shell Foundation or the Stone Foundation or banks that would give you loans or grants. You may want to become eco-friendly because at the moment you don't have that status. So one of the things you might want to do is become environmentally and eco-friendly. You might want to make the business digitalized, which it isn't at the moment. You may want to have an organization that employs over 30 years and does, over 30 people and does job creation within Ghana. So it should align with your long-term overall company strategy. That's what we're trying to get, but you don't have to put the whole strategy, just the high-level highlights of where you want to be in either 2 years' time or in 5 years' time. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So is everybody done? If you are not, please just raise your hand and we'll give you a few more minutes. But if I don't see any hands raised in the next 5 seconds, I'll just proceed on. Great. So now, who has noticed that there is a disparity and where you want to be? I think there's probably some heads nodding in the background that I can't see. Who, if you can unmute and talk, but who has exponential growth planned? Who wants to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour? have a scale of growth that looks like this. Nice. I like that, Joe. Ambitious. Excellent. And then who here has growth that is gradual? So just increasing slightly, not explosive. Nice. Thanks for interacting there. So let's move on to the next one, because what we're trying to figure out is we know where you are now, and we know where you want to be. Now we want to find out what is in the way of you getting there. So what I mean by that is, what are the barriers and the blocks that are stopping you from hitting your goal? And what I wanted to share with you guys today is something that I use as what I call lenses or pillars. but they're the 4 lenses that I look at when I'm doing a diagnostic with an organization to learn what's working and what's not working. What do they need to start doing, stop doing, and what are they doing well that they need to continue doing? So the idea is the first lens is mindset. Can anyone volunteer to let me know what they think I mean when I talk about mindset within a company and organization? I'll just wait here.
This is Joseph. I think mindset has to do with your mentality and how you think about the business and how you psych yourself in terms of how you go about the business. So I think the mentality you have and the thought process that you apply to your business.
Absolutely. And tell me about how it affects your business. So mindset can change, right? It can change and it's constantly changing. But maybe give me some examples of how mindset can either impact the business positively or negatively, if you have any examples off the top of your head.
Yeah, I think there are times when my wife plans setting offers, and when we're able to come up with offers that we feel would will be acceptable to the users, and we put it out there. It feels good because you become very optimistic that you will generate some sales and things like that. So that's one example. Another example of the mindset is sometimes when you see what competition is doing, it also sometimes make you feel like, well, are you being competitive? Are you doing enough? And it makes you kind of think a lot about the business and see, if it makes you sometimes wonder if you're on the right path or you need to do something different. So these are instances where your mindset determines, based on your mindset, you might react in one way or the other, or you might change one thing or the other about your business.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is that your mindset does strongly influence decisions you make on your business and ultimately the results of your business. Great. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. And this is the thing about these 4 lenses or these 4 pillars. They are what I call the inputs. And Joe's wife would probably like this definition, but if she's going to be baking a cake, the cake is the result. That is the output. However, the inputs are the ingredients. And those ingredients, whether that's milk, flour, salt, and sugar, that's what makes it. And if you remove one of those ingredients or you add too little of one of the ingredients, it completely changes the result. You know, how big the cake gets, whether you add yeast or not, whether it's sweet, whether it's salty. I don't know if you guys have ever put too much of an ingredient in and the result is just entirely different.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can agree. And so these are the 4 ingredients that when you're saying, I want to grow my business and I want these results, these are the 4 lenses that you want to look at. What is the mindset of our business? What is the culture we're creating? Mindset is, for example, whether you notice in yourself that you're dragging your feet. Are you thinking to yourself, I can do this or I can't? Because based on that mindset, that will impact your results. Are people turning up on time? When you start looking at developing a sales team, are they proactive or are they reactive? Are they always waiting to be told what to do or do they take ownership? That's all mindset. Do people take responsibility or do they blame? Are they problem solvers or problem creators? So that's around your mindset, your attitude. So it's really important when you look at your organizations, what are some of the mindset barriers? So I hope you've had a chance to maybe think about those within your own organization and write them down. Whether it's an individual, whether it's yourself, or whether it's your the mindset within the culture of your organization. Sorry, Chichi, go ahead.
Oh, I was just drawing your attention to the response on the chat from Nima Ahmed. Hi, Nima. She says, mindset mostly equates to values or principle on which you want your business to grow. They are not rigid and has the ability to change over time, experiences, or new knowledge.
Absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's the beauty of mindset, is it's always fluid. So as you know, first thing in the morning, you wake up in a great mood, and then you open your emails and you see the title of that first email and your attitude drops. Does anyone have that experience? I'm sure we all do. And so yes, the idea with mindset is it's very flexible. However, what you ask yourself is, what is the permanent culture that you want to create within your organization? This talks to the way that you perceive yourself. Are you going to be a boss, or are you going to be a leader? Are you going to tell people what to do or show people what to do? Lead by example. If you're working independently, how are you interacting with your clients? So mindset is really important. And mindset isn't just positive and negative, good and bad. There's different mindsets. There is something that's called, I don't know if you know the expression, running around like a headless chicken. But that's when you guys feel like you're in survival and you have to do things. And when everybody is like moving like this, you often make mistakes. You're not particularly pleasant to people. You can be sharp. You can forget things. You end up shouting. You end up forgetting. You miss things out. People make mistakes. They don't respond to emails or orders. And that's when you can have unhappy customers. So it's really important to understand what kind of environment and mindset you're creating. The second one is skill set. So that is pretty straightforward. The skill set is the competency. Do you know how to do the things that are required to do? So you may know that within your company, people lack the skill set of customer service, resolving problems, listening well. You may find that someone's missing the analytical skill set. But what are the skills that are missing, that are stopping you from hitting your goals? I don't know if anybody that's on the call can think of one or two skills that either they are personally missing or someone in their team doesn't have that would help them towards hitting the goals.
Hi, this is Joseph. So continuing on my example, in terms of competence in production, I think the skills are there in creating all kinds of cakes to meet the needs and the specific requirements of customers. I mean, the skills are there, but the skills that are lacking at this point are I would say the marketing, the bookkeeping, and the sales skills for my wife's business. So at this point, it's just one person, it's just her doing the business. And so the areas where she's lacking are the marketing, the bookkeeping, and then the sales.
Perfect. So that's really clear. And that's the thing you want to outline when you're doing this observation, is saying, you know, we're not superheroes. We can't do absolutely everything. There's certain skills that we're great at and others. So for me, I know that I don't like spreadsheets, and the numbers are not my strong point. So if there is a piece of work that requires assessing data and analyzing data, I'll often contract somebody to come in and help me do that. So that's understanding from yourself, who might you need to hire? Who might you need to contract, or how do you need to upskill yourself? Is it something that you have the time to do, but you just don't have the knowledge? Execution. Nobody is being executed here, but does anyone on the call know what I mean by execution?
Hi, it's Effie again. Execution is the actual fact of how you do carry out all these other things that bring you to completion. So how do you implement it? How do you take the skill set and your mindset and put everything together to get you where you want to go? So
absolutely spot on. Because Efe, if you have the right attitude and you're like, I'm going to go out and get them, and I know that I can, and I totally trust myself, and I believe in my product, and I think my product and my people are great, and you know how to sell effectively, if you don't pick up the phone and make the call, or you don't go to the meeting, or you turn up late for the meeting, or you only schedule 3 meetings instead of 15, then you're unlikely to make 7 sales, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So if your closing percentage is 50, execution would be saying, I need to speak to 20 people to get 10 clients. But if you spoke to 10 clients or 10 prospects, then you would only get 5 at a 50% closing. So execution, exactly spot on. It's the doing of putting to action the mindset and the skill set. So this is super critical. Are you seeing the right people at the right place at the right time? It's about knowing your target market, knowing how to approach them. An example I have is I just spoke to an organization in Uganda yesterday, and they were saying that they had just spent a lot of US dollars on marketing campaigns, and they had made radio announcements, 3 announcements a day for the last 3 weeks. So they'd spent a lot of money on that. And they basically said they haven't had one single call in. And that's about execution to me. That's about above the line marketing that doesn't actually get the buyer to have the conversation that's required to make that buying process. So it's like, are you targeting the right people? Are you at the right conferences, having the right conversations? And then lastly, what are the tools that you are missing in your business? Are there things that could help you operate better? I know Joe said he's got all of this machinery, but at the same time, in order to handle the invoicing, is there something that his wife needs to handle all of that? Efe, as a consultant, you might want to look at a CRM. And at the moment, your business is really small, so you may not want to have Salesforce or Zoho, but you might have a free Zoho, but somewhere to store all of the information in Excel or spreadsheets and have systems and processes to track what you're doing. And as your business grows and scales, if you were to have a salesperson doing business development for you, you would want to look and track their KPIs. So how many hours are they working a day? How many calls are they making a day? How many prospects are they speaking to? How many meetings are they booking? And how many of those meetings are converting? Those are the kind of special numbers you want to be tracking. Same thing, Joe, if you end up having a sales team going out to do some business for your wife, you may want to track some of those measurable activities. So I've given you some examples, but what I wanted to hear from you is, in your own experience, what are some of the main sales challenges for businesses, specifically in Ghana, and also specifically in the eco space? I'd love to hear from you, because not all problems are the same. Bearing in mind that you don't want to add in things that are out of your control. So the government, COVID. I was just in Uganda in November, and it was election time. So they shut off all of the internet. They shut off social media. And obviously businesses weren't operating particularly well. But what is in your control, or what can you influence that are challenges for you as a business?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, please do share your name. I've got you down as Ahmed Ibrahim.
I'm Firdaus.
Pardon?
Firdaus.
Ah, brilliant. Lovely to speak to you, Firdaus. Please go ahead.
I think some of us, mostly our problem has to do with our target customers, the type of business we want to do. We know what we want to do, but how to, I think, advertise, or maybe the type of customers we should be dealing with sometimes has to be the problem. And also our branding, how, for example, maybe I want to do clothing. That's what I want to do. How am I supposed to maybe brand myself so well and to be able to fit in the market, since there's so many competition when it comes to clothing lines in Ghana. There are a lot of people who want to do the same business. So how am I to really brand myself? How am I to target my customers to be able to stay in shape, like stay in that competition? Sometimes that mostly be our problem.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, Firdaus. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking, in a specifically in Ghana, in a very competitive market where there is access to lots of clothing, how do you make yourself stand out, and how do you sell differently so that people buy from you and not from your competitors? That's a really good challenge to have. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have the same problem or other problems, other challenges? I'm not hearing from anyone, so I'm just going to move on to my next slide.
This is Joseph.
Go ahead.
So I agree with what she said earlier. And also there is that huge copycat syndrome, right? So you identify an area, you think, oh, I'm going to do something here. And then within a short space of time, there are people who are doing the same thing. And it can be so obvious because sometimes you can see people doing exactly what you do. So you put out offer A, then you do event B, and do something else, C, somebody does the exact same thing. You can tell that people are just copying what you're doing. So it's what we see even in the traditional business space. If you go to the market and you start selling shoes in one spot, the next day, or fruits, let me put it this way, you start selling fruits in one spot. 2 days later, you see 3 or 4 people bringing the same kind of fruits to sit in the same spot as you are. Not different fruits, the same thing, right? And crowding out that space.
Absolutely.
So it's a problem you see, which tends to discourage a lot of people. The other thing is a cultural problem. For instance, I've lived in Nigeria before. In Nigeria, people would come after you. Businesses will go after customers. It's not uncommon to see, for instance, bank salespeople stopping you randomly trying to sell you a banking product or something of the sort. In Ghana, culturally, we are quite reserved and quite shy. So it's not so easy for us to go out there and go after customers. We'd rather like to just post something online or something of the sort and hope that the customers will come, right? It's not in our nature to be so forward and so aggressive in trying to convince someone to be a customer. Sometimes we even see it as if we are begging, and so we hold back.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Let me just go back very quickly. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Joe, before I finish? Any other challenges?
No, these are the only ones.
Wanted to add up to what he said.
Perfect. Go ahead.
When it comes to this copycat thing he's talking about, sometimes some even would come to your DM, tell you, oh, I also order these stuffs, I sell these things, but can you link me to your supplier? And I'm like, how? If you are telling me you are already in this business, you also import clothing to sell and other stuff, why come to me to ask for my supplier or something? Be like, you are interested in what I'm doing, at the same time you want me to link you up. If you are truly in the business, then should I be the one directing you to my supplier?
Yeah, that definitely doesn't make sense, does it? It cuts you out. Absolutely. Well, let me answer those two really quickly, or I have a question back to the both of you. When we talk about the copycat syndrome, is that something that you can control? Yes or no?
No.
No. Is it something you can influence? Is it something you have influence over?
Typically, no.
Good answer. If you do, it's very fractional. So it falls underneath the realm of out of your control. So the things that you can influence, or the things that you can control, is when you do have those copycats. And trust me, it's not just Ghana. If I go to Uganda and we have Rolexes, which are chapatis rolled up with egg. If there's one stand, there's 15. If it's barbecue chicken, it's 15. If you're Nigeria and you have a suya stand, there's like a bunch of other people. So the idea is that I've experienced in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in Thailand, in various countries I've worked in. So the copycat syndrome will work. But what I've always said to people is, in order to do well and to do better than your competitors, you have to do two of multiple things. But what do you think the two most critical things are? It's quite simple, but the first is basically the way in which you sell. Because if you approach your customers in the same way that everyone else is approaching your customers, you don't become memorable. And the only reason that they buy is based on price.
Price.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you want to do is differentiate yourself from the other people doing what you're doing. So sell differently. And I'll get into that a bit later. So the first step is sell differently. And then the second thing is retain your customers. Because what stops them going away, if they've already bought from you, how do you create loyalty? So that is the other thing that you want to think about as a business in an environment where there's lots of copycats. One of my clients, AfriPads, makes reusable sanitary towels in Uganda and then sell them to NGOs all over the world. And they had a company in India do the same thing, but make them half the price. So in order for them to continue actually operating and selling at the right margins to pay the women in Uganda fairly, which they're not doing in India, then they need to go in and sell differently. So I worked with them on that strategy. And of course, once you have a client, it's about retaining them and giving them a different customer experience. So the second thing you mentioned was the Ghanaians are less Nigerian, we should put it. And I have had this experience firsthand. My stepmother is from Lagos. So, you say that in Ghana, people are more polite, they're more reserved, they're not in your face. So you would rather be passive with selling. And that's British as well. I don't know if you guys know about British people being very polite and not really saying what they feel or mean. But let me ask you, when we look at where that lies within a business, where do you think that falls in here?
The mindset.
Absolutely. So is the mindset that we're too reserved as a culture, and therefore we cannot go out and actively promote? It's rude, it's aggressive, and it's not the way that we do things. How do you think that mindset impacts the results? What do you think the direct results of that are?
Fewer sales.
Spot on, fewer sales, because it also impacts execution, doesn't it? Yeah. So if you think to yourself, I shouldn't really go out and approach all of these people, because no one in Ghana likes cold calling. Like, nobody likes talking to people they don't know, and nobody wants to be pushed. Then obviously you're going to speak to less people, or at the moment your wife is reliant on referrals and incoming business, which means you have less exposure, less conversations, so less sales, less customers, less turnover, and less likely to hit expansion goals. So can you see how mindset plays a big role?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. What I will tell you is it's not the first time I've heard this, Joe, and I get it, because every single country that I've ever worked in, whether it's Cambodia or Ghana, not Nigeria, has said something similar. Like in our culture, we're not like the Nigerians. We can't do it that way. Even when I was in Zambia, even when I was in Zimbabwe, they were like, the West Africans, Connie, that you're working with, they're fine with it. But here in Zimbabwe and Southern Africa, we're super chilled out. We don't do that. So the two things that I want to address with that is, one, it's a cultural belief. So it's not just you saying it and making it up, Joe. It's a cultural belief within your culture. But there are other cultural beliefs, like women shouldn't sell. When I worked in Côte d'Ivoire and we were selling solar lights for Zola, Off-Grid Electric. I don't know if you know them, Zola Solar.
Yes.
They said women can't sell, and the best salesperson was a woman. I'm a woman. So it's not true, but it's a cultural belief. There's a lot of cultural beliefs that aren't true. Like when it rains, you can't work. You can't travel. And so people just stay indoors and you just can't move. There are so many cultural beliefs, whether they're Western, whether they're, from Ghana, whether they're from East Africa or Asia or wherever, there are always cultural beliefs, but they're not always true. And they can be real barriers to success. So what I would suggest is to try an alternative mindset, but try it with the second point, which is really critical, which is, let me ask you this. What is your perception, Joe, of what sales is? So how do you view sales?
I think sales, theoretically, it's about trying to get your customers to pay, to see that what you're offering is valuable or is of value, such that they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, cool. That's a pretty concise definition, and I'd say that that's what most people would say. Some people would say something different. I don't know if Efe, you want to suggest what your definition or how you see sales, if it's any different to Joe's.
In what context? Sorry.
So if I was to say, how do you perceive sales, or what do you view sales as? When I say to you selling or sales, how do you view it?
I think sales is definitely the way that you reach out to your customers, and it's the way you make your profit.
Okay. Nice definition. Anybody else want to volunteer their sort of view of what sales is? I don't know if Chi-Chi wants to share what her view of sales is. Maybe not. So my understanding when I do workshops, and I've done workshops all over the world.
I was speaking, but I didn't realize I was on mute. Apologies.
No worries. Go ahead, Chi-Chi.
So sales depends on the different areas. There are different ways of selling, and but I think that ultimately is driving sales to making sure that you're actually selling something, like maybe a product or service, or anything involves transactional purposes. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be an idea or anything. So I'm just trying to be very minimal with my understanding for sales. Yeah.
So sales is basically pushing a product or a service and getting it out to customers. So when I often ask people what they see sales as, they use this vocabulary. And I don't know if it's going to resonate with you guys, but pushing people, persuading, getting people to buy from you, forcing people to see the value. And the challenge is that a lot of us, all of us here, probably have had really bad buying experiences. Put your virtual hand up if you've had a bad or even terrible buying experience where someone has been pushy, has tried to force you to buy something that you don't need or want. There we go. Where they're in your face. And I think that's where we get this mindset that sales is, that sleazy, like Americans say, the sleazy car salesman, the guy who's like making you buy something you don't need or want. And that's the problem, is when people approach you and they're pushing in your window and they're giving you, bananas or food or nuts, and they're saying, buy it, it's only this much. That's the problem, is when people perceive sales, or when sales is done that way, because it gives sales a very bad reputation. And what I'd like you guys to do is to rethink your view of what sales is, and not to see it as convincing or pushing or persuading or manipulating or forcing, or the worst one, pitching. I want you to remove pitching from your vocabulary with sales, because sales should be less talking and more listening. It should be learning what the problems are that your customers are facing that you can solve for them. So sales should be helping. I don't know if you guys want to write this down, but sales, the definition of sales should be helping your customers to make the best possible decision based on all of the information. So that decision could be a yes or a no, but you're helping your customers to make the very best decision based on all of the information. So you're not cheating, you're not pushing, you're not forcing, you're not pitching so that you can get it out there. You're just simply giving them all the right information so that they can make the best decision. And I can give you a bit more on that, but let's move back to this. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to chip in something.
Yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to sales again, sometimes some of the customers, especially in my country, if you don't put in the effort, you're seen not to be serious with what you are doing. Like you were saying, not forcing. Someone might just ask you about something and the price, and the next minute the person expects that you would come back asking him whether she wants it or not. Ask so many questions about what you are selling, and at the end of the day, even though the person is not going to purchase it or buy it, she expects you to have time showing her everything. So like with this, you saying it should be more of listening. Does it have to do with the country or something, or we just have to go by that?
No, well, what I would say is that I suspect that there's something missing in your sales process. That means that you're letting your customers control the sales process. Sales should be controlled by the salesperson. But later on in this conversation, I'm going to show you a framework that you can go away and use that will help you sell differently to the way that we've been traditionally taught to sell. Would that be helpful?
Oh, okay.
Perfect, great. Sure. But I understand that what's happening in that scenario is somebody is basically asking you questions and you're answering them. Can you show me this? Can I see this? How much is this? Show me that. Can I see this? How much is this? And how much is that? Can you give me a discount? That sounds to me like your customer is leading that sale, and that you as a salesperson are not leading the sale. So what I'd like to do is show you a framework that you can follow that helps you lead that sales process. You can't control what your customers say and do, but you can pivot the conversation so that you end up asking more of the questions and leading that conversation by finding out what is it that they need, what is it that they want, what are the problems that they have, what are they specifically looking for, and therefore you can have a more consultative conversation. Not everyone is going to play ball, so that's something that you have to remember, is you cannot control other people and how other people will react, but you can definitely control how you react and you can influence other people. But I hope I can answer your question better in the future of this call. And if not, just put your hand up again or reach out to me directly. I'd love to be able to help you with that, Firdaus. Someone else has raised their hand.
Oh, it's me. I just wanted to rehash that. For some of us who would want a more one-on-one session, please reach out to us. We've had some conversations with Connie on how to make sure we can have some tailor-made solutions for you. So you can probably send us an email or send us a DM. Please, technical team, let's have that in the chat so that you can have access to those to her, and then we can also share details of her information with you. But just wanting to touch a little bit about speaking about sales, and probably some sort of like a question is that what is a perfect, I don't know if that's in your presentation as you come, what is a perfect sales process? Because I feel like depending on who you're talking to, depending on who you're conversing with, that person has like the possibility to, like Fidel said, taking over your sales process. But then if you, and especially if you're from this part of the world, it's like when you're not explaining to them, they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to buy from you and you're giving me attitude and you're not being responsive and you're not answering my question. And that is if you're in like the an MSME space. So what is that perfect sales process? That one, maybe, I don't know if this is part of the presentation, but I feel like this would be very important as a key takeaway for all of us.
Perfect. That is the one framework that I want to leave you guys with at the end of this call. So I will get there in about 15 minutes or so. So it's a really great question and I will get there. But what I wanted to reinforce from Firdaus mentioning what she suggested is when I say that sales should be leading your customer through a conversation to help them make the best possible decision based on all of the information, it doesn't mean that you're passive, but it does require you to be not aggressive. So there's a difference. There's passive, aggressive, and you need to be assertive. And it's a balance in between the two. So I will touch on that later on in the call and come. But if we're following the process of the diagnostics and we get kind of away from the questions and back onto the agenda, we've asked ourselves, where's the business now? Where do you want to be? And what's in the way? And you guys shared 3 problems so far. But due to time, I'm just going to share with you some of the other problems that you may not even know that you have. Or you may not even know that you don't even know that you have, if that makes sense. So some of the challenges that are very common that I've seen in multiple businesses, and remember that I also sell to organizations in Ghana and in Nigeria. So I don't know if you guys know Paga, that does the mobile money transfers in Nigeria. You know, that's one of them. There's Farmerline, various other organizations. So I'm very familiar with the way that people buy within these contexts. So it is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that there is a way. So some of the main challenges are you might be missing your sales targets and you don't know why. It could be due to inactivity. It could be due, like Joe found out today, to mindset that has become a barrier. You could have your products out there and you expect them to sell themselves. And what happens is that your products can sell themselves to the low-hanging fruit. So your friends, your family, their colleagues, their friends, their families, and you can grow organically, but that happens very slowly and in a limited way. A lot of people expect that you can just get a product, put it there, and it will sell itself. And that's where there's a problem, because it doesn't. Another problem is that you maybe don't have a sales team or a sales culture. Just so you know, I'm struggling with being able to access the chat or read the chats. But I'll pick those up later.
I'm happy to read for you. I think there were just
I think that
two
if there are questions for now, I might address them at the end, if that's
Sure,
okay.
fine. Yes,
But can
that's
I
fine.
suggest that if someone does have something to say, instead of leaving it in the chat, please just raise your hand, like your virtual hand, and then unmute yourself and speak if it's appropriate. But I'm just letting you know that I'm not seeing the messages during this conversation because I'm not stopping to read them while I'm doing that. And thanks for offering Chi-Chi, but I think for time reasons, I'll just run through the slides. So as I'm going through these problems, it would be good to know for yourself, do you think that you could have these problems? When you think about hiring salespeople, just remember, what experience do they have? Have they been selling fast moving consumer goods? And therefore they don't have any experience doing complex selling. For example, Chi-Chi, if you were employing a salesperson to create partnerships with investors and incubators and various things, you probably wouldn't hire a salesperson who had only sold products. You'd be wanting to look at someone who had maybe sold services or done B2B work, business to business. Another challenge is that you have inconsistent styles of selling. These are very vague problems because I didn't know who would be on the call today or who would be listening. So some of these may not apply to you. But one of the things that you have mentioned, Firdaus, was that people often pitch, convince, push, and are product-led. And the problem with that is that that is what everyone else in the market is doing. They're pushing their products and they're forcing them, and everyone has always sold that way. So people are used to buying that way. But what happens when I say to you, this is my dashiki fabric, this is what is printed from this region of Ghana, it's really good quality, the material's really thick, the dyes don't run, you know, this is the best class material you can possibly find. What is the first question that you're going to ask if you're a buyer and I'm a salesperson and I've just described my product and pitched it to you? What's the first question?
How much does it cost?
Spot on, Joe. How much? The magic question. If you lead with a product, then the customer is going to lead with a question about the price. And the conversation will go like this. This is my product, I'm pitching, I'm convincing you, I'm telling you it's amazing. These are all of the benefits. How much is it? It's this much. Let me go away and see if I can find it cheaper elsewhere. Or let me try and drive your price down. And the problem with that conversation is that people are only buying because of price, not because of value. And so it's not a good way of selling and it's not a good way of buying. And the only way to change that cycle is to sell differently. So that's something I'll come into, Chi-Chi, about the most effective framework for selling. You need to change that up. The conversations sometimes are not deep enough. So the products I've heard you guys selling today are not brand new, innovative, different things. I'm working with a client in Uganda that sells remote monitoring systems. So you can put the box on your gas meter and it can register how much gas is being used, or you can put it on a solar installation and it tells you how the battery is operating, how much energy is being consumed. And there are only like maybe 10 companies in the world doing that. And maybe only 3 of them are in Africa. But getting people to buy that product is really hard because no one is using it. So sometimes you need behavioral change. Getting people to stop defecating outside and buy a latrine in some of the really rural areas is difficult because culturally they have the habits. Picking up dirty water from the river, they've always done that. My father did that. My grandfather did that. So why should they spend money on buying clean water? So some conversations need to be a bit deeper. Some are just transactional, but you need to start with a problem instead of with a product, if that makes sense. A lot of people are missing out on upselling. I think, Joe, you could double your sales if you were proactive about upselling in a very polite way. So not in a pushy way, but in asking your customers, were they satisfied? Were they happy? Is there any way that they could improve? What would encourage them to make more orders? And then offering that to them, or giving them incentives to refer you to other people. A lot of people also find themselves not in a sales culture. That was something we mentioned earlier. People aren't used to selling. And so it's becoming like a passive thing in the business. But as you scale your business and you grow it, you want to think of sales as a real priority in your business, because as Chi-Chi mentioned, it's your way of selling your products. It's a way of bringing the business in. You know, Efe also mentioned it, and Joe, it's the way that you bring in revenue. So those were some of the challenges. What I want you guys to think about, and you don't have to do this with me now, but when you talk about all the problems that you have that are stopping you from getting to your goals, whether that's mindset, skill set, execution, or tools, ask yourself, what is it costing me every day, every week, every month, every year for the next 5 years if I don't solve that problem? How many customers am I currently losing out on? How much business am I losing out on that I could be making? How much money? How many of my customers are churning or not repeating the business or going elsewhere? How much investment could I be getting from investors, from the bank, from foundations that I'm not getting at the moment because I'm not investment ready? What are the resources you're wasting? So have a think about the cost or the impact of the problem. Some of the solutions, I think you guys are pretty much ready for this now, but one of the things I would suggest is that you minimize your product portfolio until you've scaled. So what I mean by that is don't try and do everything. Just do a few things really, really, really well until you become very well known for that particular thing, and then you can add more products on. So I don't know what stage that any of your businesses are in, but if you crowd your portfolio, then you simply confuse your customers and they'll kind of buy based on price. So get really good at what you sell and have a minimal portfolio. If you're going to grow a sales team and you're not a salesperson, then hire a qualified, competent salesperson to take the lead and the ownership of that. Make sure that you provide yourself and your team with the right tools and incentives. So if you're thinking about paying your salespeople, make sure you have lower base salaries and higher commissions to incentivize them. Make sure that you provide your team with training, not just on the product and the processes, but any tools they need to use, and soft skills like customer service, solving products or solving problems, influencing people. And then the last thing I was going to say is to basically get some time with an expert, which Chi-Chi mentioned. If you would like to have some one-on-one time with me in the next 2 months, we are able to get a free initial sort of 30-minute or so session. And then we can go from there. But there's plenty of local expertise. You might know people that have sales backgrounds, so just ask them for advice and for questions. But to go back and answer the question Chi-Chi asked, which I'm sure you all want to know, is what is the framework for successful selling? So what I would say is the first thing that you want to lead with when you're selling to anyone is make sure that you set the agenda, that what you're trying to do is to find out from them what are their problems or challenges that they are having or experiencing. So this is very translatable for Chi-Chi and for Efe, who are selling a service. So what are the problems that they're having, and what is the impact of those problems? Now, where Joe, your wife, is selling a product, and the same thing for Fidaus, if it's, you know, fabrics and materials and clothing that you're selling and there's a lot of it, it's hard to have the conversation, but you can still pivot it to ask them, what are they looking for? Have they looked elsewhere? What are the problems that they found with the other things they've looked for? Was it a problem with the quality? What have they found that's difficult? What do they specifically need? Is it because it was too short, too long? But learn from them what they need and what their problems are. That needs to be the focus of the beginning of the conversation. Then you want to build a business case. So it's something similar to what I did on this call with you guys in this workshop, is ask you guys to actually look at what is the business case or the impact of these problems. How much is it costing them not to do anything about it? This may not be directly translatable to all of you, but you want to follow the process, because if you talk about the problem, it creates a sense of wanting to solve it. But if you talk about the product first, then it's only about the price. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Yes, this is Joseph. I have a
Can you please repeat Can you please take it again? Sorry, before you ask your question, Joe. Apologies.
No problem. No problem.
I was just explaining that instead of leading with the product and having to face a conversation about price, that you should lead by inquiring about the problem. So not pitching the product, but actually asking your customers, what are the problems they have? What are their needs? What would they like? What are the problems with what they found before? Because then you'll have somebody who wants to have concern about fixing their problem and doing something about it. And if you build a business case, then it's much easier to figure out the value of what you're selling. So if it's costing them money to buy cheap clothes elsewhere that fall apart, every time they buy the new clothes from elsewhere that fall apart, that costs them money. If they have to buy a new one every month, every 2 months, how often do they buy it? 6 times a year. Well, how much are you spending on your jumpers every year? I'm spending about this much. Wow. So you're spending this many, this much money on this clothing. Well, if you have a solution, which is one jumper that's going to last her 2 years, then ultimately she's saving money, and it's a different kind of conversation. So that's what I was just saying. If people understood the difference between leading with a product and leading with a problem. But go ahead, Joe.
All right. So I wanted to find out, in the example of my wife's business, could a good way to find out the problem be, say, someone sends a message, "Hi, I'd like to order a cake." Normally the question we ask is what size we have, but in this case, would it be good to say, what's the occasion? Is it a birthday? Is it what are we celebrating, etc.? Things like that. Is that a good way to try and understand the problem? And the next question is, would you use the same approach for a brand new customer as well as a repeat customer?
Absolutely. That's a really, really good question, Joe. I would say treat your existing customers like they're brand new. Sometimes we forget that existing customers are loyal to us, and we just expect them to just stay loyal for no reason. So giving them the extra attention that new customers get is really important. I think that you always want to use people's names. You want to tell stories. So these are all advanced sales things, but when you're selling, make sure you're telling stories and you're using names, especially if people know people. But to answer your first question, yes. What you want to do is ask as many questions that are helpful for the customer to understand. The reason for that is that if somebody says, I'm trying to order a 1-tier cake, and I want it to be chocolate with this icing and this decorating, etc., you can say, okay, great, we'll get it done and they'll be ready on this date and it costs this much. But instead, what you do is you become a consultant and you ask them, great, we're happy to do that. But what I wanted to check with you is how many people are going to be eating the cake. We want to make sure it's the right size. And what kind of occasion is it? And, are there any allergies? Are there any preferences? Does the birthday girl have a particular favorite color, that we can add on to make it extra special for her? Is there anything that you don't want? Have you ordered your cake somewhere in the past and they did something that was helpful or not helpful? But you want to engage in a deeper conversation to create that loyalty. to go the extra mile to give that customer service that people are not getting elsewhere.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful.
No problem. And Joe, I'd
Cynthia,
love
you
to
had a
share an
question?
Instagram of I wanted to share it, sorry, just quickly with Joe, I wanted to share an Instagram with you as well. If you look it up, it is a cake place that does extremely well in London that might inspire your wife with certain things. And it's called Pearl, like the earrings, like Pearl, and Groove, like dancing. So
Groove,
Groove, Pearl and Groove. So
Okay.
check them out on Instagram, but they do some pretty amazing things that I think would be very trend setting in Accra.
Fantastic. We'll do so.
No problem. Great. Sorry, Chi-Chi. I know that we've got 4 minutes to wrap up before I have to jump on another call, but let me quickly answer your question.
No, I think Cynthia had a question, so I just wanted her to ask, and then maybe you can take mine. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Cynthia.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been really great, very good tips. I just wanted to quickly ask, what if you're in a situation, say for instance, a trade show, where you have buyers come in, they usually don't have that much time. They're usually looking for specific products. How do you engage them? Because this sounds like a time-consuming thing to do.
Absolutely. That's a great question. That's a super great question. And this comes up a lot because sitting down and having a meeting one-on-one where somebody's agreed to spend 20, 30 an hour with you is very different to someone who's going around looking from stand to stand. So we talk about having an elevator pitch, but earlier on, Cynthia, we said we were going to delete the word pitch from our sales conversations because we're going to stop talking and do more listening. So what I would do is before an event, an industry event or fair, I would write down the key questions that you would want to ask your potential clients. So if they come around and you see them looking, you would say, hi, how are you doing? Draw them in and try and ask them as many questions as possible. What we think, or what we tell ourselves, is that if we give them all the information very quickly and we shoot it at them, they'll get the information and they'll want to buy. But what that creates is the experience that Joe was talking about, where people are forceful and pushy and giving sales a bad reputation. So what you want to do is at these industry events is have so I'll show you what happens when I go networking. Instead of blathering about all the things that I do, I'll say, oh, thanks for asking what I do. I work with socially minded businesses to help them solve sales and leadership problems. What do you do? So can you see how I've kind of got this very quick thing to tell people what I do very succinctly, but I always turn it around to ask, what do you do? And then when they tell me what they do, I do this thing where I play back or I ask them, tell me more about that, so that they keep talking and telling me more, and then genuinely be interested and listen, and it will be very transformative. But I'm happy to jump on a call if you're heading to an industry event and you want some prep for some tips and tricks and hints of how to do that. I have 1 minute before I've got to jump off. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Not,
yes,
reach
that's
out.
fantastic.
Perfect, thank you. Chi-Chi?
Those of us who want to reach you, how do we reach out to you?
Thank you for that.
So I believe that you would get in touch with Chi-Chi at
Yes.
Circular Space, and they would be able to organize that for you to be able to contact me. I had my contact details on the slide, but I've omitted that. So reach out to Chi-Chi the same, it's information, I think it's info@Waste and Create.
Yeah. Waste or
Perfect.
Create. It's on the chat, so you can check there. Please You can also share your full name and email. We realized that quite a number of you, when you joined, so I see some very familiar faces, people who have joined from day one. Thank you so, so much. We've been sending you daily emails of the program, updates, speakers' presentation, as well as their details. So if you signed in, definitely you get the email from us. We probably Connie's LinkedIn and email address, if she permits us to share that, so that you can reach out to all of the experts and all of the speakers. Well, I just realized my video wasn't on, apologies, that have been in the session so far. Okay, I hope this has been helpful for you, Fidel. Okay, good.
Perfect. Well, I just wanted to firstly thank you all for taking the time to listen to me for so long. I really appreciate and respect you doing that, especially when I'm telling you to stop pitching and talking and start listening. And I've been doing a lot of talking. Also, thank you very much for everybody who contributed and answered questions and was really proactive. Thank you so much for that. I know I may not have answered every question you have, but like we said, you can reach out to Chi-Chi and to the Waste and Create team, and they'll be able to set up some time with me to do that. I'll be heading to Uganda tomorrow, so my network is very choppy. So if you give me a couple of weeks to get out of there, I'll probably be able to set up a better call in 2 weeks' time, just for context.
Okay. Thank you so, so much, Connie, on behalf of the Waste to Create team, the Mastercard Foundation. We really, really appreciate your time. This has really been very much transformative. I really like the engagements and all. So please, technical team, can you pull up the poll? We'd like your feedback, all participants, on how this session has been helpful for you. We are back again tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very interesting one because I hear a lot of questions about how can my product be different? How can my product be unique? How can people have access to my product? You know, so many things. So tomorrow we'll have Kwame Opoku, who is a partner at Global Research People. He'll be talking about a very interesting topic, which is building a formidable online presence. So please don't miss that out tomorrow. How can you build a formidable online presence as a business? Please join tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then as well as on Friday, we have one last session, and that session will be pretty much about managing business finances. So for some of us who are looking at, we've learned about sales, and she talks about managing your finances and ensuring that everything you're doing, it's you know, very proactive. It's good for your business. It's ensuring that you increasing your sales and all of that. So do well to join the session on Friday and as well as tomorrow. Please, the poll up, I just want to be sure. Okay, so the poll is coming up. Please do well to give us your feedback and check your emails. We'll be sending you more details of the session. If you've missed out on the session, please go on YouTube, Secular Place, that's the name of our page on YouTube. You can find all of the sessions that you've missed. Trust me, it's been very, very insightful and very, very much engaging. So I'm sure you'll find one or two information there that will really help your business. So please do not hesitate to join us tomorrow, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Ghana time. Don't attend alone. Attend with your colleagues, attend with your partners, attend with your friends that you think the sessions will be beneficial to. And let's continue to improve on our businesses, and we're wishing you all the best. Thank you so much. Good night from us in Ghana, and from all of you joining us from all over the continent and outside. We really appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye. very important to understand the difference between an actual business model and the sustainable business model. The actual business model is simply, working around how I'm going to make money at the end of the year, right? How I'm going to continue to empower my business models to grow, scale up my initiatives, continue to pay my staff where I don't go bankrupt. But a sustainable business model is one that is very much conscious about what kind of products do I have? Is it like, for example, there are people who process palm oil, right? They process palm oil by the river, and at the end of the day, they pour all of the chaff into the ocean. They don't care about how it depletes the environment. Those who are in the mining industries, they mine, now we're already seeing the galamsey issue affecting our water bodies and all. They don't care about the environment as far as they continue to make money. But a sustainable business model ensures that 360, okay, you take care of your environment while still providing solution, while still providing value, while still, making your money. You're also what's enabling and, supporting the environment. So that is the concept of a sustainable business model.
B Corp is a certificate which proves that as a business, you have considered more than just the profits. And then here we have Growth Mosaic, who have worked quite closely with us in the past, and PEG Africa, who are a solar business here as well. So that is like a bit of a broad overview on what a B Corp is.
Sustainable packaging is simply packaging that over time reduces its environmental footprint, okay? And you know, there's a confusion between sustainable packaging and sustainable package design. You understand? You can, if you tag your product as eco-friendly, it's not necessarily sustainable. Let me explain. If you package your product in, let's say, paper packaging, and the paper package is really not sourced ethically, even though the paper package is eco-friendly, it's not ethical, it's not sustainable, because trees are being cut to produce paper. But if the paper packaging that you utilize is actually made from reclaimed paper waste from these book producing factories, then your packaging has been sustainably designed.
Fair trade prefers to support disadvantaged businesses or producers than to support advantaged businesses. So likewise, they expect our business to focus on disadvantaged people than advantaged people. Okay? What do we see in Ghana? Can someone tell me what we see in Ghana about our business? What do we see in Ghana? In Ghana, we prefer giving advantage to people who already have the opportunity, while we left the disadvantage behind. So this is what fair trade looks at. Fair trade always puts people first. There's a term we use. There's a people, the planet before profit. So we put people first and environment, then we think about profit.
What is remote work for a company? The first thing that we need to be able to understand is going remote does not necessarily mean going digital. Going digital can, of course, help you to be able to go remote faster, but it's important for us to understand the difference. And in terms of remote work, what is remote work? Remote work for me is the ability to focus on productivity over presence, to focus on the ability to create value, to collaborate on a value proposition irrespective of our geographical location.
Yeah. Rien say sami beshune sama kaldem je fama dogi wo rien say jine ñu baax ñam Tequila yatalon, kila mayo, moro fa tequila de falon, kila ilo, kila bago, ono jamais. Namalande, namalande. namanale Manu York yeah I know muturde darab jaru fi fetching colore oh no mana di sore wonyu dara dara du bi dara sa xufi nañu sama colore namanale colore ganyu si manu mako namanu